I got 1,500, now 16, 1,600. Do I hear 17, 17? Sold the horse for 1,600.
The sun had barely crested the horizon, casting long shadows over the dusty auction yard. Wooden stalls creaked in the early morning breeze, and the scent of hay mixed with a tang of horse sweat filled the air. Cowboys and buyers milled about, boots kicking up clouds of dust as they inspected the horses, murmuring their assessments in low voices. The chatter of negotiations and the distant clatter of hooves on hard-packed earth created a rhythm that was as familiar as breathing to anyone who had grown up around horses. Among the crowd, one man stood slightly apart. His hat was pulled low, shadowing sharp eyes that scanned the lot with practiced attention. He had been to hundreds of auctions, but today, something tugged at his instincts, a whisper of unease he could not ignore. That's when he saw it. A horse stood at the far edge of the lot, apart from the others, calm but alert, with a coat that gleamed like polished chestnut. The auctioneer stepped forward, clipboard in hand. "This one's got no papers, folks. No registration, no history. Bidding starts at 100. Most buyers glanced briefly, shrugged, and turned away. But the cowboy lingered. There was a familiarity in the horse's stance, the subtle way it shifted its weight, the intelligence in its dark, steady eyes. Something about it was not right, and yet he felt drawn to it. His heart skipped, not from excitement, but from recognition. He knew, deep down, that this horse held a secret that might change everything. The cowboy stepped closer, boots crunching on the gravel, and let his eyes travel over every inch of the horse. Its muscles were lean and rippling beneath the smooth chestnut coat, and the way it held its head high suggested pride without arrogance. There was discipline in the horse's posture, an alertness that went beyond instinct. This was not a run-of-the-mill auction horse. He knelt briefly to examine the hooves, noting the careful trimming, the subtle signs of training that only years of experience could reveal. This horse had been handled by skilled hands. His mind raced through possibilities. Was it lost? Stolen? Or simply unregistered for some reason too mundane to matter? The horse's eyes met his, dark and unblinking, as if weighing him in return. A shiver ran down the cowboy's spine. He had seen horses like this before, rare, intelligent, and trained to respond to commands that only the sharpest riders could deliver. He could almost hear its silent language, a readiness to trust, but only after careful judgment. He adjusted his hat and walked slowly around it, noting the fine muscle definition along its flanks, the smooth arch of its neck, the confident sway of its tail. Most buyers would see just a beautiful horse with no papers. But he could see the story etched into its body, the quiet strength, the elegance, the unspoken potential. Something about the horse felt familiar, stirring a memory deep in his mind. A memory of a horse he once knew, a horse that had vanished under mysterious circumstances years ago. His chest tightened with a mix of recognition and unease. He realized, with a sinking certainty, that this horse was special. And whatever its past, it was about to change his life. As he stood beside the horse, a memory surged unbidden, pulling him back years, back to a time when the smell of leather and hay was as familiar as the back of his own hand. He was younger then, leaner, with a fire in his eyes and a restless hunger for adventure. He had spent countless hours on the ranch, learning to read a horse's every movement, every twitch of an ear, every flick of a tail. There had been one horse in particular, Majestic, a chestnut stallion with the same intelligent gaze as the horse before him now. Majestic had been exceptional, trained for competitions, trusted to carry him through obstacles that would challenge even the most experienced rider. Together, they had formed a bond forged in sweat, patience, and quiet understanding. The stallion seemed to anticipate his thoughts, responding before he even gave a command. Then, one night, it all changed. Majestic had disappeared. The ranch had been ransacked, rumors of thieves, whispers of a stolen prize. He had searched for weeks, questioned neighbors, and followed every lead, but the horse had vanished without a trace. The loss had left a void in him, a mix of anger, guilt, and longing. He never forgot that feeling, the helplessness, the ache of knowing something precious could vanish in an instant. Now, standing in the auction yard, the same instinct that had guided him back then flared to life. The horse before him, the way it shifted its weight, the intelligence in its eyes, was familiar in a way that sent chills down his spine. Something deep within him stirred, a quiet certainty that this was no ordinary horse. It carried a story, one erased from paper but not from memory. He inhaled the dusty air, letting it fill his lungs, and whispered under his breath, "Could it be?" The possibility both thrilled and terrified him. His past and present collided in that moment, and he knew the decisions he made in the next few hours could echo the mistakes, or the victories, of a lifetime. The auctioneer's voice boomed over the yard, rattling off numbers and prompting occasional cheers from eager buyers. Most of the crowd ignored the paperless horse, murmuring among themselves about its lack of documentation. Yet the cowboy couldn't look away. He watched the animal's every movement, noting the subtle grace in its steps, the way it shifted its weight with perfect balance. A sudden stir in the crowd caught his eye. A man in a dark coat, with a reputation for shady deals, had taken an interest. The cowboy's gut tightened. He knew that look. It wasn't about admiration or love for a fine horse. It was about profit, about seizing something valuable without regard for its history or well-being. The bidding began. The crowd called out low numbers, and the paperless horse remained under the radar. The cowboy hesitated, weighing his options. He had no papers, no guarantee. But instinct told him this horse was worth more than gold. Every fiber of his being urged him to act. The shady man raised his hand. 200, he called, a hint of smugness in his voice. The cowboy's pulse quickened. He met the horse's eyes again, searching for a sign. It responded, ever so slightly, a tilt of the head as if acknowledging him. That was all he needed. He raised his own bid, steady and deliberate. A hush fell over the crowd. Some murmured surprise, others curiosity. The auctioneer's gavel hovered, waiting for the next number. The tension crackled in the dry morning air, each heartbeat magnified in the cowboy's chest. He knew that once the gavel came down, nothing would be the same. With a final, firm gesture, he placed his winning bid. The auctioneer's hammer fell, and the paperless horse was his. But deep down, the cowboy knew the real journey was only just beginning. The gavel slammed down, echoing across the dusty auction yard, and the cowboy felt a surge of relief mixed with anticipation. The paperless horse was now his. Whispers rippled through the crowd, some impressed, some confused, most indifferent. Few understood the weight of what had just happened, but he did. He knew, better than anyone, that this was no ordinary animal. He approached slowly, extending a steady hand. The horse's dark eyes met his, calm yet assessing, as if weighing whether it could trust this new owner. He ran his fingers along the smooth, warm neck, feeling the rippling muscle beneath. The horse flinched slightly at the sudden contact, but relaxed when he spoke softly, his voice carrying a quiet authority. The auctioneer shuffled forward, offering the usual reminders. "No papers, no guarantee," he said with a shrug, glancing at the cowboy. But those words barely registered. The cowboy wasn't thinking about contracts or legality. He was thinking about the hidden story etched into this horse's every movement, every glance. As he led the horse away from the yard, the cowboy noticed a small, barely visible brand on its flank, partly faded with age. Recognition hit him like a punch to the chest. He had seen that mark before, in a photograph tucked away in an old ranch ledger, a mark belonging to a prized competition horse that had vanished years ago. His mind raced. Could this be the very horse from his past, the one that had disappeared under mysterious circumstances? The realization made his heart pound. He had won more than a horse. He had uncovered a living secret, one that had been hidden from the world and, perhaps, from him. As they walked together, the cowboy's resolve hardened. He would uncover the truth. Whatever the horse's history, whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them. The journey had only just begun, and the bond between man and horse was already taking root. That evening, the cowboy led the horse to the small corral behind his cabin. The fading sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, and the air was heavy with the scent of earth and hay. He studied the horse carefully, running his hands over its sleek coat, tracing the faint scars and subtle muscles that spoke of careful training and discipline. Every movement seemed calculated, every glance purposeful. He tested the horse with a few simple commands, shifts of weight, clicks of his tongue, a soft word spoken under his breath. To his astonishment, the horse responded instantly, not just obediently, but with an understanding that went beyond basic training. It anticipated his movements, corrected its own, and seemed almost aware. The cowboy's breath caught in his throat. This was no ordinary auction horse. It had been trained by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Then he saw it again, the faded brand on its flank. Up close, it was unmistakable, a mark used by a prestigious ranch that had once been renowned for producing championship horses. The cowboy's mind raced, piecing together fragments of memories, photographs, and whispered stories from years ago. He remembered the missing stallion, the scandal of its disappearance, the rumors of theft. Could this be the very same horse? The realization sent a shiver down his spine. He knelt and examined the hooves, the ears, the eyes, all the subtle indicators of elite training. Each detail confirmed his suspicion. This horse was stolen or lost under mysterious circumstances and had somehow ended up in the auction yard, without papers, without a trace of its true identity. For the first time, the cowboy felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. This was not just a horse to ride or sell, it was a living testament to a past that had been erased, a secret that demanded justice. He whispered softly, more to himself than to the horse, "I'll find the truth, old friend. Whatever it takes." The horse shifted its weight, nuzzled his shoulder lightly, and the cowboy felt the bond solidify. They were partners now, united by instinct, trust, and the unfolding mystery that would soon consume both their lives. The path ahead was uncertain, but he knew one thing: the horse's secret would not remain hidden for long. That night, the cowboy sat on the edge of his cabin porch, the horse grazing quietly nearby, and let his thoughts run wild. The moon hung low and silver over the quiet corral, casting long shadows that seemed to mirror the tension in his heart. He had always lived by a code, a quiet honesty, a respect for what was right. And yet, here he was, holding in his hands a horse that could change his life entirely. He thought of the possibilities. The horse was strong, intelligent, and beautiful, a perfect companion, a prize beyond measure. It could elevate his standing at competitions, bring him wealth, maybe even offer the adventure he had always dreamed of. And yet, he couldn't shake the gnawing certainty that this horse belonged somewhere else, with someone who had loved and trained it long before the auction. The cowboy ran a hand over the horse's neck, feeling the warmth and steady pulse beneath. The animal looked up at him with unspoken trust, a silent question in its dark eyes. "Will you do right by me?" That simple gaze made his chest tighten. He knew he could not betray that trust, not when the horse had already suffered enough in its life. The wind rustled through the nearby trees as he weighed his choices. Keep the horse and enjoy the rewards, or return it and face the unknown consequences. Somewhere in the quiet night, he felt the answer stir. Morality was not about convenience. It was about integrity, about honoring what was true even when it hurt. Finally, he exhaled slowly, the decision settling deep in his bones. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would uncover the horse's past, reveal the truth, and ensure it found the place it was meant to be. The bond between them had grown in a single day, but it was built on trust, and trust demanded honesty. He glanced at the horse one last time before retreating inside, whispering softly, "We'll make this right, partner. I promise." The next morning, the cowboy set out before sunrise, the paperless horse following closely, ears pricked and alert. His mind raced as he navigated the winding dirt roads toward the old ranch where he hoped to find answers. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and earth, and the quiet of the early morning seemed to echo the tension in his chest. The ranch was mostly abandoned, its wooden fences weathered and sagging, but the memories it held were alive in every corner. An elderly man, once a trainer of championship horses, greeted him cautiously, eyebrows raised at the sight of the cowboy and the striking chestnut beside him. The cowboy dismounted slowly, letting the horse sniff the grass before speaking. "I think this horse belongs here, or at least it did." He showed the man the faint brand on the horse's flank. Recognition flickered in the trainer's eyes, and his lips tightened. "Where did you find it?" he asked, voice low and steady. The cowboy recounted the auction, the horse's unusual behavior, and the instinct that had guided him to bid. The trainer nodded slowly, a mixture of relief and sadness in his gaze. "That's Lightning," he said finally, the name whispered like a secret. "Stolen years ago. We thought he was gone forever. Someone erased his records, sold him off quietly. I never stopped hoping." His voice broke, memories of the horse's training, his victories, and his disappearance flooding back. The cowboy felt a rush of emotion, relief, sorrow, and awe all at once. Lightning, the horse he had once idolized stories about, the horse that had vanished under suspicious circumstances, was alive and in front of him. The bond he had already begun to form deepened, now rooted not just in instinct but in truth. He knew what had to be done. Together, they would restore Lightning's rightful place, reconnecting him with the life he was meant to live. The cowboy glanced at the horse, whose dark eyes seemed to shine with recognition. In that silent exchange, he felt the weight of the past lift slightly. Justice was not only possible, it was unfolding before him. The journey that had begun with suspicion and instinct now moved toward resolution. The horse's secret had been revealed, and the cowboy understood that some bonds like the one between a man and a horse were stronger than time, distance, or deceit. The cowboy led Lightning across the old ranch, every step a mixture of reverence and relief. The horse moved with a grace and confidence that seemed to remember its former home, as if every scar and mark carried a story that was finally being acknowledged. The trainer and a few long-time ranch hands watched in quiet awe, understanding the gravity of the moment. The cowboy felt a lump in his throat. He had the chance to keep Lightning, to ride him into competitions or claim fame and fortune, but he knew some things were more valuable than personal gain. Respect, trust, and integrity guided him now. Lightning belonged here, in the care of those who had loved and trained him from the start. As the horse nuzzled the trainer, recognition and relief shining in his dark eyes, the cowboy felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had done the right thing, not for applause or reward, but because it was right. Turning to leave, he patted Lightning gently, whispering, "Take care, partner. You're home now." In that moment, he understood that some victories were measured not in gold or prizes, but in honesty and the quiet bonds formed between two souls who had found each other against all odds. Weeks passed, and the cowboy returned to his own small ranch, the echo of Lightning's presence still vivid in his mind. The experience had left an indelible mark on him. It wasn't just about the horse or the thrill of uncovering a secret, it was about trust, integrity, and the quiet lessons life sometimes delivers when least expected. He walked through his pastures with a newfound calm, noticing details he had once overlooked: the sway of the trees in the wind, the soft rustle of the grass under hoof, the gentle neigh of his own horses. Every sound, every motion reminded him of the bond he had formed with Lightning, a bond built not on ownership, but on respect and understanding. Sometimes, when the wind picked up just right, he swore he could hear the echo of Lightning's hooves, reminding him of the journey they had shared. He smiled quietly to himself, realizing that the horse had changed him as much as he had changed the horse's path. He was more patient now, more observant, and more attuned to the silent language of animals and of people. Sitting on the porch one evening, he tipped his hat back and let the warm sun wash over him. The past no longer weighed heavily on his shoulders. He had done the right thing, and that knowledge filled him with a quiet, steady pride. Life had a way of testing a man, of forcing choices that revealed character. Today, he was certain, he had been tested and had emerged stronger, wiser, and, above all, more human. In the end, it wasn't just about finding a lost horse, it was about finding himself.